Hi, everyone.
It's preparing, setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. 3, 2-ish. Okay.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to our presentation on transfer portfolios, tips and tricks, and resources. There we go. My name is Russell Shoemaker. I work with the transfer students here, and I'm also joined by Amber Thomas, who is the Director of Transfer and Academic Partnerships. So I was a transfer student, and I believe Amber was too. So I don't know about you who's listening right now, but I transferred several times. So I came from a couple of different colleges before I actually went on to the art school that I originally went to. And found that process very difficult, very confusing. I believe Amber was a transfer student as well, and I think there's probably a similar story there too. So we both know like how difficult it is to make that transition, and just wanted to introduce ourselves so you know that we are here to help you, and just feel free to reach out to us. All right, cool. So what I really want to get into today, or what we're going to get into today, is the difference between, excuse me, the admissions portfolio and the portfolio that you might be requested to submit the additional portfolio. So the portfolio to kind of allow us to give you transfer credits. Okay, so we're going to start with just some general tips and tricks as far as like both of these are concerned. So tip number one is to make sure that you are always documenting your work and your process. So as you make work in your classes or on your own at home, wherever you're making work, make sure to take lots of photographs of your work in good lighting. We'll get to that in a minute. And then one thing that can be really handy is if you are working off of your phone or you're working off of an app like Google Photos, is you can always favorite your images. So take more photos than you think you need to take plenty of photos of that painting you made, because you never know which one might be slightly blurry, which one might have better lighting, and then really go through them later to see which ones are the best. If you're taking art and design courses, you also might consider organizing the work that you've made from those classes in specific folders. And we recommend using something like Google folders, or there's also Dropbox. I tend to think Google is a little bit easier to use personally. And then also keep notes. So the good thing about Google folders is you can also add any sort of notes that you'd like to indicate, like what mediums they were, what year they were created, all sorts of things. Like think about maybe even if you're shooting videos, you might want to mark down certain keyframes that you find really important. If you are collaborating with or if you're collaborating with other people to make videos or to make like a graphic novel, that's where you might want to write down just little notes like, I did the penciling for this and my friend did the color. So all those, in addition to the typical things that you would keep track of when submitting a portfolio, like the size of the piece that you're working on, if that is applicable, if it's not digital, and also consider the course title if it is from a class. So if this is for an assignment, maybe even mark that down. So keep it all organized. Organization is your friend. Every time I am not organized, I realize my desktop is just filled with images and I don't know what's what. So try to stay organized as much as you can. And then you want to always, after you've selected your favorite images, you've selected the ones that look the best, make sure to clean up your images. So one thing that you don't want to do is to send us an image of your work that is on a dirty kitchen table, or maybe you're holding up a painting and we can see your toes or something like that. Like, just make sure that you're cropping it and, so we can just focus on the image itself. We don't want to be distracted by any background noise, right? We just want to see the work that you took so long to make. Another thing to think about is like lighting. Okay, so often you can get pretty decent lighting inside, but usually the best lighting is when it is bright outside, but semi cloudy. So today is a very good example. If you're in Detroit, you can look outside your window and look at the kind of weather that there is. And what that does is it actually allows you to take a photograph that doesn't have a lot of shadows on it that might show up if you're photographing your work on a very sunny day, or if it's a very cloudy day, it might make your work seem more dim. So a bright sort of overcast day is really the best. The only thing you really need to watch for is the dreaded iPhone shadow that shows up in a lot of work. So if you're photographing your work on the ground or on a table, there's a chance that you actually might get that iPhone shadow in there. And unless you're Lois Dodd and you're painting specifically shadows, maybe that isn't a great idea. So watch for that as well. All right, so the first type of portfolio we're going to get into is the admissions portfolio. And this is going to be a little different from the second portfolio, which we'll get into in just a minute here. So after you've done all that, you've organized your work, you've collected it, you've picked your best images, you've cropped out all the background noise, you've made sure that the lighting is good. We really only need to see 5 to 8 of your strongest examples of work. Excuse me. So you might just consider keeping this portfolio very simple. Keep it honed into the work that you think is the strongest. And maybe don't try to show us like a range of work. Like maybe you really excel at making graphic design work. And so you just want to show us that work, the work that is your strongest, the work that also personifies you, like who you are as an artist or a designer. If you're having a hard time deciding, you can always meet with us, but you could also ask your teachers, you could ask your friends, you could ask fellow artists. When in doubt, just ask like, what do people prefer? They might all have different answers, but maybe that'll help you narrow it down to 5 to 8 images. And if you're really struggling to, keep things down to that amount of images, once again, you can look at your favorited images, like we mentioned, and just kind of go through them. And obviously, you'll probably have ones that you're like, this is definitely going in the portfolio. You might have ones that you're kind of on the fence about. Then maybe start considering, okay, what supplements the work that I know is going into the portfolio? So if you're a painter and you have made a lot of portraiture work that is, maybe not very colorful, for example, maybe you have some very colorful paintings that you want to include to also show that side of you. Or if you're working in themes. So obviously we don't want you to just submit photos of your cats here. I realize I've showed a lot of photos of cats. But let's say that you're making something, you're making illustrations that are based on a story that you've created. Maybe you want to include some backgrounds. Maybe you want to include some of the characters in different outfits. Something that will maybe flesh out the rest of your ideas, your concepts. So those are 2 different ways to really think about that portfolio. And then, okay, so tip 3 is, like we said, how I mentioned keeping some notes about your work. Definitely when you go to upload your work on Slideroom, so we use Slideroom, there's always a little section for you to include some details. So that is where if, like I said, if you worked with a few people to create this piece or this work, you might include their names. You might mention what they did versus what you did. A good example is film. If you are working collaboratively with a team of people to make a short film, we want to know exactly what you did because we don't know if you're the actor, we don't know if you're the camera person, we don't know if you're the director. There are a lot of different pieces to that, so make sure to be very specific about that. So if you're inspired by other artists, if you're doing like master studies, let's say, or if you're just maybe you are recreating something from a photograph, like you're taking an element from a found photograph and you're using that in your work. Hopefully you're not just recreating it one for one, but if you are using a part of it, maybe this is a place to mention that. So another trick is to make sure that you are considering your voice in your work. So I'm an artist. I've made work for a while now, and I've definitely been inspired by many, many artists. And when I first started painting and making work, I definitely, you could say I was very inspired by just a couple of artists, and my work kind of looked like theirs. And that is very normal. And it is a way to kind of build up your skills as a young artist. It's totally normal, like I said. But at some point you do have to kind of transition away from that a little bit. And we want to know what it is exactly about that style or that artist that you like. Take those little things out of that artist and integrate it into work that is more uniquely yours. A really good example is students who are really interested in anime and manga. Sometimes, the work can look a little too close to the original sources. So I think a really interesting artist to check out is Yuichi Yokoyama. He makes manga. He makes very interesting, colorful manga. It's this image up here, this weird face here. But as you can see, it doesn't really look like anime, your stereotypical anime. And that is because he is, integrating his own voice into this. And so that's a really wonderful example. Another huge example that many of you probably know of was Van Gogh. Van Gogh was very inspired by Japanese prints, and it was his introduction to Japanese prints that made him the artist that we know now. But if you just looked at his work, you might not know that. So he blended his own sort of influence. He blended the influence from those prints in with his own style that he was already creating from just painting outdoors, right? So those are ways to kind of walk away from just recreating that work one for one. Another thing to consider is fan art. So if you're making a lot of fan art, that's good. That's another way to kind of learn who you are as an artist, hone those skills. But we don't want you to submit fan art, okay? We want to see your own characters. We want to see your own stories, your own worlds. If you have one piece that is like the most unique version of Spider-Man ever, feel free to submit it, as long as it is very unique and very much yours. But you definitely don't want to make that the majority of your portfolio. All right, so what happens next? So after you've submitted your portfolio, you've submitted your application, all that good stuff, we start to look at all the different aspects of your transfer application, including your transfer credits. All right, so you will probably get, well, you will, if you're accepted to the school, get a transfer credit evaluation. And this is what it's kind of going to look like. This is Sally's student here. Okay, not a real person, obviously. As you can see, there's a lot of words on here. If you're anything like me, you'll look at numbers, you'll look at the amount of words, you'll be like, okay, well, I trust this is good, and then you'll maybe just listen to music or something. But I would really encourage you to dig into this, to read through it. It doesn't take very long, and it's very informative. So the first thing you'll notice here is just like sort of the amount of credits we offer in certain areas, whether that is general electives like your liberal arts courses versus studio art courses. It's just a good overview to kind of read through. I think it's very helpful. But then you're most likely going to kind of head on over to see what credits transferred. So this is after we've taken a look at your transfer credits, or your transcript, excuse me, from the colleges you went to. But also we might take a look at your high school transcript and see, oh, you took an AP course, or maybe there's an AP course transferring in to the college you currently are at. And as you can see here, this says it's 0 to 3 pending credits. And then there is this little note here that says UN there. So what does that mean? You're wondering. You don't have to listen to this. You could read the back of the transfer credit evaluation, but we could also show you that it means that we are missing something from you. So that UN there, that's an indication that you should check the back of the page to see what's going on. In this case, we need your AP scores. It looks like that the college the student attended before transferring to CCS was able to get a hold of their AP scores. Maybe it was included in your high school's transcript and you weren't required to submit your high school transcript to us. So in that case, you'll head on over to the AP side of the College Board and submit your AP scores so you can get credit for that course. This is Composition 1. This is a course we require at CCS in this case, and you want to make sure you're not taking that class over again. So go ahead and submit that once you see that. All right. So moving on, let's see what else we got here. So it looks like we're getting credit for these courses, these 3 credits here, 3 credits here, 3 credits here. And these are the courses that are transferring over. So your art history course is coming in for an art history course. That's great. Your environmental science course is coming in for a natural science course. Fantastic. Composition 2 coming in for English. Great. But then we see these things. There's the 0 to 3 again. So this time it says NW, which stands for needs work. Okay. We need to see your work. And this is that second portion of the portfolio we were talking about. And as you can see here, in this case, that's quite a few credits. Like, you definitely don't want to leave potentially 18 credits on the floor. Like, you definitely want those to transfer in so you can graduate a little bit faster, hopefully, or at least have some credits taken care of, so you don't have to spend as many hours working in class. You can spend more time in studio. So in this case, NW means needs work, and that is what we're going to focus on now. So once again, you can look at the back of the sheet here. You can see what we're looking for from you. It'll break it down by the type of class. It'll break it down like how many projects we'd like to see from you ideally, but you can submit all the work you made from that class if you want to. So if that's like 4 sculptures that you finished for a sculpture class, great. If that is like 15 design projects you completed for a design class, fantastic. That is another reason it's really good to keep those projects that you've made in your art and design courses in a Google folder, so you already have it ready. So when we come asking for it, you can immediately share it with us. And it's just good for your own organizational purposes. Okay, so let's get into that process. Switch my screen here. Let's see. So, this is kind of the idea of what a Google folder might look like. I'm sure a lot of you who are looking at this are like, I know what a Google folder is. So this student, once again, I'm using cats as an example, but these are their projects, right? So they have uploaded all their projects. They've made sure that everything looks good. They have named their pieces. Maybe they've even included a brief description of the materials. Maybe they've included a brief description of the name of the project. What's so great about Google folders is, like I said, it's very easy to rename things if you need to rename them. Often, if you're just taking photographs, they're going to say IMG, and then a big number. So be sure to rename them so we know kind of where they're coming from and what they were for. Another thing you can do, like I said, is create a Google Doc for this, where you can, write them down manually. So that way you keep track of everything you've done for that course, and we can see very easily what they were for. And really what we're doing here is we're sharing these examples with faculty who need to determine where to place you in their program, need to determine what credits they can give you specifically. So if it's something that we can give you right off the bat, we're going to give it to you. But if there's any question from the department, and if the assignments you completed in this certain class kind of align with the assignments they are asking their own students to take, this is how they see that. So it's a really important step, and it's really important to be prepared for it. So when you get that transcript evaluation back from us and you see that, we need to see that work, you don't have to scramble to put it together. All right, get out of here. Switch back to my other presentation. Cool. All right, so that's pretty much it. Obviously, there are additional resources. If you head on over to our YouTube page for College for Creative Studies YouTube page, there are plenty more resources. This video right here actually gives a really nice breakdown of what to include in your portfolio. If you want some extra tips, Brandy's very good at breaking it down for you. There's also an admissions CCS YouTube page, which is a little bit different, but they have a lot of different information that I think is really relevant to transfer students. Like maybe you want to hear the interdisciplinary department talk about their department, and there's a nice little lecture there for you to kind of dig into that. So I think both of those are really great. Go ahead and subscribe to them. And then there is also a National Portfolio Day coming up. If you're listening to this way past October 2022, don't worry, they happen every year typically. You can go on there to the National Portfolio Day website. We've included that in the chats and just register. You can register for free. We have one in Detroit this year on October 29th from 1 to 5 p.m. It's a good chance to see the campus. It's a good chance to meet with like 4 to 5 different schools. Sometimes you are standing in line waiting to speak with people. But yeah, it's a really good. And if you're not from Detroit, there are plenty of different NPDs throughout the nation throughout the year. So mostly in the fall, excuse me, it's mostly in the fall. But if you, let's say, live in San Francisco, that's coming up in November. So there's plenty throughout the fall. And if you miss it this year, you can always go next year. If you have any questions about maybe why a certain class didn't transfer over, you can always reach out to us. If you want more feedback on your portfolio, what to include, you can always reach out to us and speak to us. You can book an appointment with me through my Calendly link. You can just email us, whatever works for you. We try to answer that within a few days and get back to you with that information. Another thing to think about is, I think that was it. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions. Do we have any questions, Amber? Or anything we didn't cover?
Nothing I can see in the chat. So.
Okay. All right. So, we'll just get into these steps for you to apply. Go ahead and submit your free online application as soon as you get a chance. You can apply as a transfer student for either the winter semester or the spring semester or the fall semester. If you want to go into the fall, you can go ahead and get that started even now if you want to. Then the next thing to do is, I should also mention the application here is very easy. It should take you less than 30 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, if it takes you a little bit longer, but it's very easy. You don't have to submit letters of reference. You don't have to submit an essay. It's just some basic information. So it is not difficult at all to complete. And then you want to make sure to submit your college transcripts. If you're currently in courses and you're about to register for more courses the following semester, you could submit unofficial transcripts because we will require an official transcript with your final grades. So what that means is if you submit your transcripts, your official transcript the first time around and you're still in classes, we're going to ask for that again when you decide to come to CCS. So in some cases, it can be easier to submit the unofficial transcript so you don't have to pay for it twice. In order to do that, you just want to make sure that the grades are on there, the name of the course is on there, the code of the course is on there. So if you're taking Part 101, make sure that the little code is next to it so we know. The other thing to think about, make sure that your name is there. I think I said that already. The name of the college is on there too. So often you can get a full unofficial transcript from your student portal of the college you're currently going to, and just screenshot it or download a PDF and send it to us. After that, if you have AP, IB, any CLEP tests that you've taken, and you want to make sure you get credit for those, go ahead and submit the official transcripts for those. And then just remember, if you've gone to multiple colleges, you do have to submit a transcript from each one of those colleges. So even if that was just for one class, we're still going to need that eventually. So it's better to just get it out of the way so we don't have to hassle you for it later. And then it's the portfolio. So everything we went over, just a reminder, it is 5 to 8 pieces of work, and you upload that to ccs.slideroom.com. That is the first portfolio we talked about. And this first portfolio, the reason why we want you to take the time to really pick your strongest work is when we look at your transcripts, we're going to look at your grades, we're going to see how you did, and then we're going to look at your portfolio. And those two things combined is how we award our merit scholarships. Obviously, there are more scholarships that you might get through FAFSA, that you might get outside scholarships. You might be eligible for other need-based aids, but this is like a big chunk of scholarship money that we are usually able to offer to 98% of our students. So that is very important to do. All right, and that is all I had. So if there are no more questions, we can wrap up there.
No questions there. I did want to mention that we also have the Michigan Reconnect grant extension
Oh, yeah.
for students that are taking advantage of that. So it's additional, I believe, 4,000 per year.
Yeah. So if you're a Michigan student, that is super helpful. Great. Okay, well, I mean, thanks for joining us. Amber, is there anything else that you want to mention before we
I
sign off
think-
here?
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. It's good talking.